save some for the end. Picture yourself taking a nap. No problem, right? Now picture yourself waking up in the middle of an NCAA wrestling tournament, and stranger yet, you're enrolled in the heavyweight division. And your name has just been called as on deck for mat 3. This happened to me, and it wasn't a strange dream. This is a result of what's called non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder. It is something that people that are totally blind like myself have, that we don't see light and dark. You all have a circadian rhythm in your body that regulates your sleep patterns that goes about 24 and a half hours. But the light-dark cycle resets that clock for you each day to back to 24 hours, okay? Blind people don't have that. So my sleep patterns widely vary, as my wife can certainly attest to. And so for me, I spend about a week and a half of good sleep pattern, about a week and a half of bad sleep pattern. This is the something no one knows about me section. What that means is, when I say bad sleep pattern, I'm talking 3 hours or less of sleep during a nighttime sleep cycle. So that's really a bigger challenge for me than being blind, because being blind is just a very small inconvenience. But the sleep thing, now that's a challenge. What I'm telling you is one of my weaknesses, because I think there's a lot written out there about identify your strengths, know your strengths, focus on your strengths, be stronger, be tougher. But there's not a lot written out there about identify your weaknesses and understand your weaknesses and embrace your weaknesses. You know, you can figure out ways to work through it, get around it. Despite my 24-hour disorder, I still lead a normal life. I'm still being productive. It doesn't stop me. So again, understand and know your weaknesses, but also don't be afraid of them. Embrace them. Wrestling was really a great sport for me because it taught me a lot about how to be competitive in life later on. And it taught me a lot that you didn't have to be 100% better than the guy you were facing. You just had to be 1 or 2% better and use that 1 or 2% effectively. And my senior year of high school, I had a goal, because I'm big on goal setting. My goal was to not only lead the team in pins, but break the pin record at Sheboygan Falls High School. Just a small high school, but it was my goal, and the record was 18 pins. I pinned 23 people that senior year. So not just broke the pin record, I kind of shattered the pin record. And how did I do it? Well, I used the most basic pinning combination, a half Nelson. Every wrestler knows what a half Nelson is, but I learned one simple thing. Most times when you do a half Nelson, you take your forearm and you push down on the guy's head and you push it into the mat. I learned just a simple tweak to that, and that was, instead of pushing down on the head, I'd take my hand and I'd push his ear over so that my hand could get around and their capacity to breathe would suddenly be restricted. Which in wrestling is a good thing if you're not the person being restricted. So I just used that simple push on the ear, just that little tweak to the move that no one else was using, and I pinned 23 people. So again, when I talk to people about improving in life, it's not suddenly doing a complete 180 and being great at something you were poor at. It's just finding little ways to improve yourself. Just small, slight advantages. Those are the type of things I look for and the type of things I talk about and look for in my own life. The goal setting is really, I think, is where it's at. And to me, my definition of a goal, because if you're going to go around and get paid for speaking, you got to have a definition for a goal, right? My definition is where reality and dreams collide. Because I believe to be a good goal setter, you have to know your reality, but you have to be a dreamer. You have to have both. You know, sometimes we get so caught up in the reality of the world, and you know, this is the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be. But there are people who come along from time to time and turn reality on its head. You know, like Bill talks about, we carry things in our pockets now that are more powerful than the computers on our desks. You know, geez, when I went to high school, computers were just starting and they had 5¼ inch floppy disks. You know, so the reality has been turned on its head. And one way the reality has been turned on its head for me is, when I was growing up, I used to be kind of sad because I couldn't just get any book off the shelf to read. I had to wait until someone read that book onto tape. And now, I was upset, even though there was probably 5,000 to 10,000 books I could get, but I was focusing on what I couldn't get, not what was there. But now technology has made it that a blind person can pick up any book they want, scan it in if they have the time to do that, or Kindle on my iPhone now is accessible. So the book accessibility issue is really gone. And that just happened the last 5 years where any book now is accessible for me. So again, I give one talk that says there's no better day to be blind than today, and tomorrow's even going to be better. And sometimes I'm talking to a crowd of blind people, and that freaks some of them out. I was talking at the Vision Forward Association. Now, their goal is to wipe out certain types of blindness, and I said, there's no day to be better than to be blind than today, and tomorrow will even be better. And they're like, hey, buddy, we're talking about wiping blindness out. And which is great, that's fine, but in the meantime, you better deal with reality the best way you can. And that's the message I was delivering. And once they got past me saying that, and actually started listening to my message, they started to get it. You could just feel the room turn on and understand what I was talking about. I just delivered this message about books one time at just a small speech in Sheboygan. I was just up there talking. The Wisconsin Council of the Blind asked me to come talk, so I just showed up and just started talking, doing my thing. And after the speech, a gentleman came up to me and he goes, I want to thank you for coming here today. I'm like, well, sure, no problem. It's kind of half paying attention to what he was saying. He goes, I recently found out I might be losing my eyesight. And he goes, you know what really bothered me about that? I didn't think I'd be able to read anymore. But after hearing you talk, I realized that's just ridiculous. And then he even took that a step farther. When he left the Plymouth area being a pastor here, he actually wrote in the Plymouth Review, the article, I didn't even pay him anything for it. He said, Randy Meyer is my hero, just because I shared that one thing with him. So what that taught me is that words have power. And when you're up here speaking, your words have power. And you can slam them home like a steel bar if you choose to. Or you can drop your voice and kind of pull the crowd in. You can do different things. You can have fun. Every time I do a talk, I'm having fun. My challenge today was, I've done a number of talks here, so I said, I got to do something different. I can't, some of you haven't heard my first talk. Too bad for you. But some of you have heard me a few different times, and I wanted to give you something a little bit different today. One thing here's some things that I feel separate me from other speakers. First, I do a pre-speaking call with all my clients. We go over what they expect. I tell them what I expect. I work into their program. They're paying me. They're hiring me. I have to produce what they want. Without compromising my principles, I don't change my whole talk wholesale, but maybe there's a point of emphasis they want that day. So I work that into my talk seamlessly. 2 minutes? The other thing that separates me is I try my best at each talk to give out speaker feedback forms. I ask permission ahead of time. I don't just show up and hand them out and just assume it's okay. I ask permission ahead of time, but I'm looking for people to give me feedback. Now, 90+% of that feedback's positive, but there was one that said all I did was shout at him all day. So again, you need the good feedback and the bad feedback, and you got to put it all together. The other thing that really separates me is I make sure that my talk's individual. I don't go up there and repeat things that other people have said, and just kind of. I've been at some speeches where I'm like, boy, you've dropped 10 quotes on me in your half hour. What, do you have anything original? So I try and keep my stuff original. And one of my original quotes that I share with people is, as a blind person, I don't believe that I can expect the world to adapt to me. I have to adapt to the world. And I think that's an important attitude that everyone needs to take, that sometimes we think the world should shift to accommodate us. Not going to happen. The world's not a big shifting place. Just to kind of summarize something, sometimes getting back to that weaknesses point I made out, when I first started in financial planning, and I was young and better looking and single and all that good stuff, but on my anniversary, yeah. Hey, I always tell people that some people people pay me to talk, but Tammy gets to hear me talk for free every day. How lucky is she? But I would do cold calling at the time for financial planning. I'd set up an appointment, And then I'd figure, okay, now that I get these people coming in that I don't know, I'm going to tell them I'm blind. And then it took me about 2 years to identify how dumb that was. I was making a big deal out of I was blind. It's not something I do in my personal life. Why would I make that a big deal to clients? So I stopped doing it, and guess what? It stopped being an issue when I stopped making an issue. So again, I just like to get up and tell stories and let people take away what they want from my stories, but I really think there's opportunity for everyone to improve vastly by just improving their performance 1 or 2%. Thank you.